Hello, everyone, and welcome to Your Mind, Your Reality, Your Results, a weekly live show where I speak with someone an expert on the subject of mindset, so you can change your mindset and ultimately get the amazing results you want in your life. If we haven't met yet, my name is Leah Fink. I'm the owner and founder of All Thrive, and I help protect people from the pain of damaged relationships. If you ever want to know more about that, I would love to connect with you. Now, I am super excited today to be welcoming LaChelle to our show because she has a wealth of experience you guys are going to benefit from. Welcome to the show, LaChelle.
Thank you so much, Leah, for having me. And this is awesome. I'm excited to connect with you again. I feel like you've been a great guest in my home, and now I'm able to be a guest in yours. So I'm excited for today.
Well, thank you so much. I had a great time speaking with you as well, and cool collaborative relationships and ways to support each other in all of our learning. I want to encourage you guys as you take advantage of the expertise we have here today. Please feel free to add your questions and comments as we're talking. But also, if you are watching this after the fact, if we're not live anymore, you can still include your questions and comments, and we'd love to be able to get back to you if you have any other information you're looking for. So without further ado, though, let's jump right into it. You're called America's Supermom, but I know you do a lot of different things. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how you got here?
Yes. So thank you again for giving me the space and introducing me to your audience. Yeah, the title America's Supermom. The first thing is my husband and I have 15 children, and that alone is never a dull moment. I was raised an only child, and during my journey, I had some adjustment to make with having a large family. I went through some depression, was hospitalized 3 times for that, and now I'm on the journey of really being an advocate for mental wellness with women, moms especially. So I do everything I can to create an opportunity to help them with strategies to help them cope with the obstacles that are common to many women and moms especially, so that they can live their life free of stress. We do have some stress that's normal, but normal where it doesn't paralyze us and stop us from being the best that we can be. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Well, I love that, and I love that you started with that point too. There is going to be stress. Stress is normal, and of course, there's going to be a point when it becomes unhealthy, and of course, that's when we have challenges with our mental well-being when we can't maintain that
Hmm.
positive space. And obviously, our topic today is about gratitude. Was that really a turning point for you in your own journey that helped you with your mental health?
So true. I think I first had to have gratitude for my own situation. Oftentimes I was in this story in my head of comparing myself to other people. Why can't I be like that? Just feeling like I need to be better. Not able to really enjoy who I was and even knowing what that was. I had lost my identity, so busy trying to people please and be all things to all people that I just didn't have that time to reflect, to really sink in and think about what I need to be grateful for and even what my own gifts were. So it was after my last hospitalization that I really went inward, because to me, one of my coping skills with dealing with my depression, which I didn't even realize I was depressed for this period of time, was to stay busy doing things to stop the opportunity to listen and to really dive deep and reflect with my own situation. I was on autopilot, always feeling like, I have to fill a void for somebody else. It was just kind of like a coping strategy. And so it wasn't until after that time of my hospitalization that I really did the thing that I really dreaded doing, which was being quiet and figuring out what my strengths and gifts were. And it was in that period that I really began to turn the corner on gratitude and realizing what I could provide for myself first and foremost before I was able to give that to others.
Wow. I mean, there's so many good points there I would love to touch on. First of all, from your own personal perspective and giving yourself that space and
Mm-hmm.
that self-reflection, which obviously can be a really hard thing to do, to have to look at yourself that way and contemplate those things. And also, I really loved what you said about, I'm not going to get the exact words, but really how it was a perspective shift of how you saw your life.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
obviously the show is about mindset and how you shift that, and gratitude is quintessential. That's such a key piece, is how you see your whole life. So just
Mm-hmm.
before we go too far though, do you want to start by kind of talking about either a definition of gratitude that you have or what that looks like in your life?
Yeah, for me, gratitude is not limited to the things and circumstances. Things really don't have a meaning until you attach a meaning to it, I think. The color blue, stress, anxiety. We begin to define these things based on our own experiences, and our perspective becomes that reality. So, when you're dealing with gratitude, it is just really having an appreciation for what is. And everything else that comes on top of that is based on your perspective. So that's kind of where I feel, and it expands, that definition really, because as I grow every day and find out that I don't know everything and I am vulnerable to meet other people and hear their perspectives, I realize, man, I could take a piece of that definition and apply it to my life now, and to not be so frigid to where I feel like I can't expand or be flexible. That to me is really having gratitude for people that are in my life. So it just can encompass so much. I just feel that when you're coming from a space of gratitude, you have a positive outlook. Everything kind of goes through a positive filter rather than a negative filter. Oh, this is happening because, or, we kind of have a self fulfilling prophecy for ourselves that can be negative if we don't go through the space of gratitude. So that's just kind of what I would say.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Humans have our lovely negativity bias, keeping
Mm-hmm.
us safe from predators still, that will populate all those negative thoughts. So if someone's listening to this, and you mentioned a great piece about, your own experience of depression, if
Mm-hmm.
someone's watching this right now and is thinking, well, yeah, gratitude's great. My life is not great right now. COVID's not, like, it can be really heavy to get out of
Mm-hmm.
that space. Do you have any
Mm-hmm.
recommendations for people starting on that journey? Like a good set of first things to be grateful, or ways to start looking for those places in your life?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And, I always preface this by saying I'm not a doctor, even though I think I might have some kind of credentials being a mom of 15. But, because you get kind of thrown into all kind of stuff. You turn to be a doctor, you're a lawyer, you're doing all kind of stuff, right? But I think, the first thing is really being okay with things not being okay, admitting that.
Mm.
For me, I was in so much denial. It was always somebody else's fault. I was blaming my husband, my kids for my plight. And I just wasn't in that space to take accountability for what I had played in this situation. And so that was the first thing, was just having that awareness and speaking it. Because so
Mm.
often we have these thoughts in our head, and they're just wreaking havoc in our own head. I was speaking earlier in a presentation, and we don't even give the people in front of us the opportunity to say their own piece, because we have this whole conversation. We come to this conclusion and everything in our head without even giving them the opportunity to speak, rebuttal, or anything. And so when you have that awareness and you begin to speak it, it really can lighten you, because now you know what the issue is. When we're dealing with a lot in our head, we have confusion, and, one minute is saying this, the next minute is saying that. But if we just put it out there and say it, then it's like, okay, now I know what I'm dealing with. Now I know how to solve this problem because I know what the problem is. I hope that makes sense for somebody watching.
No, well, it makes sense to me. Hopefully it does for the people watching as well. And I really like that you addressed the flip side, right? It's great to
Mm-hmm.
say, add gratitude, that's lovely. But talking about kind of what it's replacing and how
Mm-hmm.
important it is to find those pieces that aren't working for you, and then use
Mm-hmm.
this to address it, right? It's hard to tell people. You could tell people all you want, stop doing the negative behavior, but you
Right.
need to replace that with something that works better for them, which I think gratitude is an amazing tool for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I love the way that you asked that question because, it's just like somebody who wants confidence. Confidence is something you can see in other people, but the journey has to be taken without confidence because you build confidence on the journey. So if you're somebody who's afraid to speak, for example, you're like, oh my goodness, they're on this live, I couldn't do it. I mean, she's at a restaurant and there's noise in the background, people walking by, I couldn't do it, I'd be nervous, they're thinking I'm crazy. But you have to first do it afraid before you can get confidence, because I can talk about it, I can show you it as much as I can, but that experience and that actual accomplishment of getting confidence happens when you take the journey. So it's the same thing with gratitude. You could say, "Ah, I'm tired of being around them. They're always happy. They have some positive spin. What do they mean?" But first, when you understand where you're at and you begin to consciously choose that, what, this happened to me. Do I want to respond in a negative way to bring more negativity and I start bringing up more negative things that can happen? Or do I want to say, okay, this happened. I survived, thought it was going to knock me out. It didn't. Where do I go from here? And begin to choose the path that you want rather than just allowing the normal behavior of your past to dictate a new reality.
Well, that's beautifully said, and it really brings up a topic to me that I think is important to address as well with gratitude, is this idea of the difference between gratitude and toxic positivity. Because certainly the last
Mm-hmm.
thing we want anyone to take from this is, saying that, well, you have to look at your whole life and you have to see it all as good and sunshine and rainbows, and if you can't stay positive about it, you're failing. That's certainly
Mm-hmm.
not the intention. It's saying, like you said, it's that bit of a reframe, is recognizing bad things can happen, things that you don't
Mm-hmm.
like could happen, and you can still choose to look at them and choose how to move forward. It's a conscious choice, not a victim mentality that you kind of had mentioned earlier.
So true. And I mean, life happens. And one of the things that I always like to impress upon moms, because, we talked off camera before this, and I'm like, oh, Leah, I'm on my phone, I'm not at home, and everything, right? And, that's a part of life. And I think these things happen, but when you make a decision of how do you want to show up, what is it that's important to you, and you know to be honest, my kids don't always understand. Oh, here she goes again, she's got another interview, or she told me she was going to do this. But to me, there's so many obstacles that we allow to be excuses, and the
Mm,
hard thing is, at the end of the day, those obstacles, yeah, I could say, oh, this has happened, I can't do it, but I'm going to feel bad. And I did that to myself rather than going through the discomfort of, okay, so I'm not at home, I can look crazy to a few people that are watching, or I can, but I'll feel better about myself, so that's just the thing. The things that you have to do for you, always, everybody is not going to understand that. You know,
mm,
if you're a person of integrity and your word means a lot, you never know what you might have to, end up doing. I was talking to a friend of mine earlier, and she was explaining this thing she did was 75 hard, and she happened to be somewhere where she had to work out. Part of the challenge is that you work out in the daytime and at night, and one of them has to be outside. And she said she was somewhere and she had to go out and do this exercise, and people were like, it's almost midnight, what's going on with you? And she's like, hey, I'll tell you all about it, follow me, and she just had to do it, so you just get out of your comfort zone. You kind of interact with people you probably never would have interacted with when you make a commitment to do things for yourself no matter how hard it gets. So I love that you mentioned that because there are going to be some challenges. There are things that are going to be outside of your control. And I think the piece about that is to remember is what are the things you can control and what can you not? Because when you begin to use those excuses and you go back and you reflect on those, you say, I could have controlled that. I allowed that excuse to be bigger than whatever action I wanted. And I did that to myself. But when you begin to really explore your controllables, you understand that, okay, I have internet, so I don't have an excuse not to show up. You see what I'm saying?
Totally. And that well, no, this leads beautifully into what we're talking about today. And the reframe I'd hope people would get from this, couple of them maybe, but talking, a lot of people talk about gratitude, and it's good to do a gratitude journal. It makes you feel happy. And what you're talking about though with this piece of, it allows you to let go of excuses,
Hmm.
it moves you past all these challenges. That's when gratitude starts linking much more heavily to success, right? It's no
Hmm.
longer just that practice you do to la 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 feel good. It's legitimately something you can do to improve your business, improve your family relationships. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you see that link?
Yeah, definitely. I think, it's like we said earlier, it's a filter that you can go through. And so I have this joke that I say to people, and I actually have my glasses here, right? These are actually some rose colored sunglasses, okay? And so I tell people, I walk around my house with rose colored glasses, and everybody laughs and jokes about it. But, there's going to be those times when things are not perfect. I could be on an interview and there's dishes in the sink, or my kids are screaming in the background, somebody's arguing and fighting. But you have to really focus on what you need to focus on at that time. Nobody sees the dishes during the interview, so why am I letting that stop me from doing the interview? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nobody can hear the kids if I have on headphones. So why are we allowing these things to excuse whatever it is that we're signing up for? I think the more conscious you are of that, the better you're going to be able to continue to perform in spite of the obstacles. So I don't know if I had the hat on when we did our interview, but I have this red, white, and blue hat that's part of my brand, America's Supermom. And it started out because I had bad hair days. And it was like, okay, I made this commitment. I'm going to be on camera. So let me find something cute or funny or whatever to kind of divert the attention. So whether my hair is good or bad, I can wear this hat and it still reflects my brand. It reminds me that you have to show up, you have something to do, put a hat on and go on and do what you got to do. So that's just a little piece about how I've reframed that in my life.
Yeah. Well, and that's great too, because it's a strategy, because gratitude just doesn't
Yeah.
have to be saying things to yourself. You can take physical actions. A lot of people write in a gratitude journal or they do something
Hmm.
physical. Having that hat is a great reminder to you. I would think every day you go, well, I'm choosing to now be, excited to be on camera versus the nervous, hair worrying person. So
Right.
I really enjoy that. So did you start with a a structured practice of gratitude? Because it sounds like it's pretty woven into your life now, but did you start with a certain small piece, or did you just jump all the way in?
Well, I think for me, it started with self care. And how do I want to? I wouldn't say self care, I would say self love. Self care is maintenance of a mindset of self love. So for me, the first thing I do is I choose how do I want to be today. And this is what I just remember when I had this reframe was that I wanted to be happy. So every day I chose to wake up and be happy. What did I have to do to make myself happy? The main thing that I remember was pouring into my cup first because I would always wake up. The first thing I would do was go get my kids, serve them, do whatever was necessary for them. And I learned that while I was thinking that I was coming from a full cup, pouring into others, it really was an empty cup. I got up where it was somewhat, I was creating a burden for myself because I was trying to have this energy and this zeal that I just didn't have because I didn't take care of myself first. So once I started practicing taking care of myself first. And it usually is at about an hour that I get up and I do the things that I want to do, whether it's reading, whether it's prayer, meditation. It can look different for what day of the week. It could be just that I get up and draw stuff. It's like my time. And I am just so excited about having that time first thing in the morning where I don't feel guilty about not doing something for somebody else. So that's kind of how it started for me.
That's great. I mean, I could talk for days and days about self-care. I know it also seems maybe a little overused. People heard it a lot during COVID, but
Hmm.
what you really touch on is this idea, what I truly believe too, is self-care becomes an ethical issue, right? You want to be
Hmm.
the best mom to your amazing swarm of kids that you can. And realistically, if you are in this mindset of non-gratitude stress, the day is going to be horrible, I'm going to be tired, how well can you interact with the kid that needs you maybe to be there a little
Hmm.
bit more emotionally that day, right? You're already not there emotionally. You're going to snap at
So
that kid.
true.
That's not going to help them, right? So
So
I
true.
really like that you touched on that piece too. It becomes it's so intertwined in how you care for yourself, both mentally and probably physically even.
Yeah. And I mean, you have more space for others when you do that. And you hit the nail on the head. There would be times that if everything was going good, like if my alarm went off and they got up like they were supposed to, I'm in the best mood. Everything's going great. But if they're crying, their shirt doesn't match their shoe or whatever, I had no patience. I had nothing to give for them. So I love that you bring that up. And I always give the example now of a chef. A chef really serves others. All the different food, whether it's, you start with the appetizer, main course, or whatever. But if you're that chef that hasn't eaten first, you're going to lose your patience in serving other people. So you fill yourself up first so you can have all the patience to wait on however many people you have to because you filled yourself up first. You're able to feed somebody else's hunger because you're full. So that's my thing that reminds me. So now I even make my own plate first. It used to be like, oh, I'm serving my kids. It's like, I'm eating. I got done cooking all this food. I'm going to eat. I'm going to serve people and I'm in a better space.
That's that's wonderful, and to me that would honestly be quite a good starter statement, maybe for someone who is now thinking, okay, well, how do I start this gratitude practice in my life? Gratitude can be, as you mentioned, I think right at the beginning, is gratitude for yourself. The
Right.
statement could be around like, I put myself first and I'm grateful that I'm able to, or that allows me to help people, whatever helps get past maybe that the fear of feeling selfish or that you're too greedy to do that. Would you
And
say there's oh, go ahead.
go ahead. Yeah, I was going to say that is so true because, we understand the analogy about being on a plane because of the oxygen. The issue is the oxygen. You can't give oxygen to somebody if you don't have any. So it's the same thing, whatever it is. And that's why I say the issue is not really self care. The issue is self love, because if you love yourself, then you can have love for other people. Many times, the things that we are battling are because of our own issues of not having it. So we can deflect that on other people, right? So we're talking about, oh, you're selfish. Well, you don't even know the definition of self love because you're talking about selfishness. You don't even understand like gratitude. People are like, oh, I don't understand this gratitude thing. But, you can't give what you don't know. You can't give what you don't have. So you first have to do it with yourself so that you can be a source for other people.
That's that is beautifully put. Is starting in that space. I
Hmm.
I do want to make sure before, because we are starting to come up to our time. Um, as people are creating their practice, they really have now seen how they want to link gratitude to their success. Do you have a couple either places that you would recommend them practicing this specifically so they can find that success, or statements, or ways that they can start? Sometimes it's nice to have an outside perspective who knows what they're doing to say, hey, start with this and see how it goes.
Yeah, for me, it is a Smile for Wellness movement that I started. And
Um,
SMILE is an acronym for 5 things that I think we need to be mindful of for our mental wellness. So the first element is sleep, making sure that we're sleeping like we should. The next one is really watching our mood. How are we feeling? What things kind of trigger us. The next one is your inner voice. What are you saying to yourself? What are you actually believing? What are you really manifesting based on your own beliefs? The next one is laughter and energy. Many times during my span of 13 years, even though I was active, for me, I thought depression was somebody who stayed in bed, didn't have any motivation. So the fact that I was taking my kids to soccer and going on field trips and doing all these things that I thought would make me successful or happy, I still was unfulfilled. And it was because those 5 areas, had a deficit in all of them. I just remember that I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't always in the best mood. Now, I knew how to put on a mask in front of other people because there were times that I had to be somewhat of a leader to others. So I knew how to do that. But that mask was covering a lot of those areas that I just was not 100% in. And I think this is something to always remember when you have friends or family members. Maybe you're not dealing with some kind of anxiety, depression, or lack of gratitude, but you can begin to start there. If you notice that they're not smiling, well, maybe you should send them a funny video to see if it makes them smile. Because for me, there were so many things that I had built a wall up in that I don't remember having a lot of emotion. I don't even remember crying at some point for a long time because I was so much focused on I got to do this, I got to do that. I just didn't have that enjoyment. That emotion just didn't provide me that connection that was necessary. So that's a good starting point for yourself and for other people to really kind of ask them the questions. Have you been sleeping good? What's your mood? Some good conversation that can help people on their own journey to reflect and think about where they are.
what I what I really like that you just brought in there is
Mm-hmm.
also the idea of how this works in relationship, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
great to say do your own gratitude thing, that, but if you are feeling maybe depression or anxiety, there can also be a component of that of isolation. And
Mm-hmm.
this doesn't have to be something that you practice only with yourself and have to hold yourself fully accountable. I love that you brought in this idea of maybe you reach out to a friend and help them
Mm-hmm.
find that gratitude and that positive, mindset they can take on for the day. Maybe you have a buddy who you every day text each other a gratitude, right? That accountability, that knowing someone else is taking that journey with you can be so powerful when you're trying to do potentially a really big reframe like this of going from
So
my life
true.
sucks, everyone's against me, to I'm successful and amazing.
Yeah, well, and I think another thing that I would even add into that is something that I did. I had to have a timer. So,
Mm.
or an alarm on my phone. You're with your phone all the time, whether you're scrolling, looking at highlight reels, comparing yourself to others or whatever. But just a timer on your phone or an alarm that says, hey, I'm grateful that I have a phone. I mean, start with the real stuff, okay? Because we start going into all this stuff. I was in a space where I couldn't even hear some of these things because I was so isolated from feeling, that
Mm.
it just wouldn't even register to me. So you had to start with where people are. And I think the fact that everybody has their own journey, they know their own situation. It could be something as simple as, you know what, I got dressed today. I drank water today, or whatever that looks like. So I think that's the thing to remember.
Fantastic. That is, to me, a really good note to start to end this on. I'm sad because I think we could keep going and give tons of value to people. From what I understand, though, there's a great way that people could connect with you and a little gift you have for them.
Yes, I am loving the month of November. It is the month of gratitude. So I am happy to have a strategy call with whoever feels like, man, I just need to have a conversation, lay it all out. I believe we all have our own inner voice, but we just sometimes don't have the space that we create to hear that voice, to be able to implement a plan and a strategy for how we can get out of the old way and start bringing on a new way. So I'm happy to have a strategy call with anyone. And I think I gave you the link. So yeah, I'm excited about that.
Awesome. Yes, I think that's a great opportunity for anyone. We'll make sure the link for that is in the comments after the show, and also LaChelle's contact information. So if you do have other questions or you want to connect with her, definitely take this opportunity. If your mindset is not where you want to be, if you feel this is really unreasonable for us to talk about how you can embrace every day and see all these positive pieces, that's the time to reach out. And I thank you so much for being on the show today. That was just
You are so
fantastic to be able to
welcome.
talk about this. I'm very grateful.
Me too. I thank you so much for get me outside. Excuse my windblown hair and craziness going on in the background, but this has just been a lot of fun. I'm happy that I was able to share with your audience. You asked great questions. I feel right at home.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate you. And thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. We will see you next week.
Bye, everybody.